Hello, everyone. This presentation is going to introduce cyberbullying and pandemic teaching and how teachers in today's society address these concerns in the classroom. The guiding questions for cyberbullying are first, what is cyberbullying and what are the warning signs to watch for? What tactics do they use? And are there ways to prevent or stop cyberbullying? Cyberbullying is a bullying that occurs through the use of digital devices. Computers, cell phones, and tablets can all be used for cyberbullying. Cyberbullying can occur in many different types of online forums, social media, gaming sites, text messages, email, and apps. Cyberbullying can cause damage and have lasting effects on everyone involved. Three major concerns of cyberbullying is that it can be persistent, hard to detect, and have permanent consequences. In order to mitigate cyberbullying, schools need to put policies in place at both the school level and the student level. One way schools can mitigate cyberbullying is by establishing and enforcing rules and policies that clearly describe how students are expected to treat each other. School districts must make their harassment and bullying policies allow for the discipline of students who engage in cyberbullying. Schools are within their rights to discipline cyberbullying that occurs off campus because the act of cyberbullying results in a disruption of the learning environment. The schools must make that clear with the staff, students, and parents. Students need to know up front what they will be disciplined with, swift penalties for cyberbullying offenses. Another way schools can mitigate cyberbullying and ensure that bullying prevention efforts are successful is to train all school staff on what bullying is, what the school's policies are, and what their rules are, and how to enforce those rules. Training may take many forms: staff meetings, one day training sessions, and teaching through modeling preferred behavior. Schools may choose any combination of these training options based on available funding, staff resources, and time. We need to get everyone involved: youth, parents, educators, counselors, youth leaders, law enforcement, social media companies, and the community at large. It takes a concerted and comprehensive effort from all stakeholders to make a meaningful difference in reducing cyberbullying. Two organizations listed at the bottom are doing everything possible to help resolve the issue: StopBullying.org and Cyberbullying.org. What is cyberbullying? Can be visited for more information.
A sheriff in Florida has arrested two girls ages 12 and 14 on felony charges of aggravated stalking in a case of cyberbullying. A 12-year-old classmate jumped to her death a month ago, and Anna Werner has more.
Police say Rebecca Sedgwick was relentlessly tormented by two classmates for a year. The arrests were made after the 14-year-old suspect boasted on the internet about the bullying. Sheriff Grady Judd.
She made a comment in reference to, yeah, I bullied Rebecca, and yeah, she's dead, but I don't give a blank. We saw that and we thought, that's over the top.
The 14-year-old and her 12-year-old accomplice allegedly harassed Sedgwick at school, then followed her online. Taunts included, "You should drink bleach and die. No one likes you," and "You should go kill yourself." Sedgwick jumped off a tower near her home after writing friends, "I am jumping. I can't take it anymore." We spoke to her mother, Tricia Norman, last month.
I want them to pay for it because they took my baby away. They took her confidence away. They took her self-worth away. And now she's gone from me.
The sheriff hasn't ruled out charging the suspect's parents.
If you can't supervise your child, if they don't behave, then take away their devices. Don't allow them to have Facebook.
So who do you blame more here, the girls or their parents?
I blame them both equally. This incident goes way back until 2012, back in November and December, with fights, with intimidating, with terrorizing Rebecca Sedgwick. So the defendant's parents knew she was bullying.
The two suspects are now under house arrest. Scott, if convicted, the sheriff says it's unlikely they would face jail time because this would be their first offense.
Anna, thank you.
It's unfortunate that in today's society, too many of these events happen. We as a school must do everything possible to help prevent cyberbullying, whether it be software programs that help detect it or having parents deeply involved in the school community. We must do everything possible to prevent losing another life to such a tragic crime. We will now discuss online pandemic teaching. We all, over the past few years, have been exposed to teaching outside of our normality with pandemic teaching. We will address two questions. What is the greatest impact online teaching has had on students and teachers? And what were the most difficult aspects of online pandemic teaching? It has been found that many students feel disconnected from their peers while learning in a virtual environment. As for my own child, she was virtually taught for several years during the pandemic and has had a disconnect from her friends and peers. During online teaching or pandemic teaching, some students feel disconnected and miss peer-to-peer interaction as they navigate through learning at home. Schools can mitigate this by using live video sessions for collaborative work, creating Zoom breakout sessions, and promoting peer-to-peer discussion. This certainly does not take the place of in-person learning, but it can help resolve the feeling of being disconnected. Another issue students face during pandemic teaching is feeling scattered and disorganized. Students' days are structured while at school, and students are used to teachers creating and implementing the daily schedule each day. Students do not know how to manage their time at home with so much work showing up at once. This situation can be overwhelming for many students. Schools can mitigate this issue by having teachers video conference with students one-on-one to teach them how to create a schedule, prioritize their task, and break down instruction. The website listed has some great tips that schools can implement to mitigate emergency online teaching situations. There is no one-size-fits-all when addressing this, as we deal with so many diverse students in our schools and communities.
Teachers wear so many hats just on a day-to-day basis.
You are a mother, you are a father, you are a therapist,
and we're, parent liaisons, and we're community liaisons.
We also counsel students sometimes and get them ready for their lives.
You are everything. You put on every hat that there is, every hat that can be worn.
Prior to COVID, teaching was difficult, but there was a lot of checks and balances, which made it manageable.
Last year, I kept hearing from folks like, you just have to accept that you're not really going to be able to teach this year. I'm like, why do I have to accept that?
I felt as though everyone in a position of authority over teachers would offer some sort of synthetic ear. They would pretend as if they were hearing us, but what was offered to us was sort of like, oh, here's a hotline number that you can call if you need extra time to talk to someone, or here's an extra therapy session or something like that. It wasn't what we were asking for.
There was a lot of concern about, just the access gap. And so we taught kids who were foster kids. We taught, way below the poverty line. We had kiddos that were homeless. So how were we going to make sure that they had the access that they needed to even get the education that we were offering? And when we came back, it was a complete downfall of education, I think.
So if school is supposed to prepare kids to go out into the world, and what kind of world are we currently living in? It's pretty darn volatile. Why aren't we giving them tools to better navigate that, right? And so mental wellness can't be an add-on. It has to be the foundation, because that is more important. The child, the student, the person as a whole and not just what are they going to remember, like what can I cram into their brain this year, and what are they going to be able to spit out on a Scantron for me.
And I think we saw the cracks, and COVID just kind of opened them up. And instead of the district seeing it and trying to patch them up, they just kept digging at them, and they kept getting bigger, and they kept getting bigger. And now here we are with highly educated teachers leaving education and like a mass exodus.
It was too much. I just started having like anxiety attacks back to back for a week, and I was like, I just can't like sacrifice my mental health anymore.
When I quit, I had a realization of everything that teachers had to go through. It wasn't really this last straw moment. I found myself in a negative headspace. I would say about 90% of my time as a teacher, and I just didn't like that for myself.
When I quit, I felt relieved. I felt so much better. I feel like I can be a better wife, a better friend, a better sister, because I have more of myself to pull from. It's like that you can't serve from an empty cup, and the cup was broken.
It was probably a solid 2 weeks before I finally took a deep breath and went, oh my gosh, I actually quit.
There was a point when I wanted to leave the teaching profession and just never ever returned to it, but I thought about how teaching has been a passion of mine since the first grade, and that's really what brought me back.
I don't know if I would ever go back to teaching. The pandemic was really traumatizing.
Every teacher that I know got into teaching because we love kids, and we want to see the next generation of humans become phenomenal humans, and having the unique ability to be a part of that development and a part of who they become. And the unfortunate reality is that we've been pigeonholed into this position where we're not teachers anymore. We can't just teach our kids and hope for the best.
I don't know how we completely start from scratch, but I think it needs to be, and it's not just on educators, and it's certainly not just on the people with the power. I think it needs to be a societal change, a community change, and really just revamping and rebuilding together.
So many of us experienced the pandemic in different ways. Colleagues leaving the profession, and now teacher retention initiatives in the state of Alabama to keep teachers in the classroom. Since 2020, we've all learned a lot of strategies and a lot of tactics to help combat this problem. While we are early in the game, there are still many, many things we do not know about teaching in the pandemic and how much learning loss will truly take place over the next several years. According to Hodges, emergency remote teaching is a temporary shift of instructional delivery to an alternate delivery mode due to a crisis circumstance. When the pandemic was declared, schools were closed and students were sent home to begin the difficult task of distance learning. Teachers had to adjust instruction quickly. Many students were without internet access and lacked the resources to be successful as virtual learners. In response to this, we've all made sacrifices. The FCC released funds to help fund Chromebooks and laptops and wireless internet connections for our students that don't have it. But as we progress, the changes will become more and more evident. We're all still learning in this process, and if we work together, we can be effective in our online pandemic teaching.